Welcome back to The World Over Live. Last year, we witnessed an horrific attack on a Chaldean Catholic church in Baghdad, as well as a mail bomb plot that originated in Yemen. Since mid-January, Egypt has been the scene of rampant unrest in the wake of mass protests by citizens against the regime of Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak. Here to help us make sense of all of this is the author of The Coming Revolution, Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East, as well as the advisor to the Anti-Terrorism Caucus of the House of Representatives, Dr. Walid Phares. Thanks for returning to the program. Also, to give us some perspective on the often forgotten Coptic Christian community in Egypt and how it's being affected by the protests, is co-founder of Coptic Solidarity, an organization dedicated to defending the human rights of the Coptic people, Deacon Hal Miwad. Thank you for joining us, Deacon. And I want to start with you, Walid. First of all, your book, The Coming Revolution, needs to be changed. I think it's the clear and present revolution for freedom in the Middle East. I mean, the book is practically prophetic at this point.
It's scary. It's the hurtling revolution. I mean, I don't know how I wrote the book, and then weeks after, we have all these situations happening.
Tunisia and now Jordan. I mean, it's happening everywhere.
And even Sudan, what's happening in Sudan, and could happen in Lebanon.
It's really remarkable. Remarkable. Let's talk about, in all of this melee in Egypt, we keep hearing the Muslim Brotherhood, that they are a large political force, and yet, if you read the New York Times today, in a series of articles and opinion pieces, there's nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
I'm going to quote from them. Bumbling Brotherhood, they're sort of the keystone cops of the Middle East, and that these jihadi groups in Egypt are unprepared for leadership.
Oh.
You say what?
I say New York Times, Los Angeles, and the entire so-called mainstream media is lacking expertise. I mean, every kid in the Middle East, let alone political scientists, and others, knows that the Muslim Brotherhood is a jihadi Islamist organization which was founded in the middle 1920s and which is the mothership of every other Islamist or jihadi organizations all the way to Al-Qaeda. So this is basically the maker of the indoctrination. They create the pools, and then you have organizations such as Hamas, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, who recruit from that pool. That's what the...
A lot of Americans, a lot of our viewers around the world, I'm getting emails from people in Ireland and London and Australia, they don't quite know what to make of this.
Yeah.
To Western eyes, you look upon this and should we be backing Hosni Mubarak? He's obviously a dictator who's ruled for 30 years. The people are not terribly happy with him. On the other hand, the only other group really, apparently, is the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, Mubarak says the Muslim Brotherhood is to blame. They are the reason for these protests. Is that true?
I think he is to blame also, because for the last 30 years he has been getting a lot of support from the United States, $1.5 billion a year, and he has basically been a poor manager on the inside of Egypt. He may have been a good associate in maintaining peace with Israel, that's correct, securing the Suez Canal, going after Al-Qaeda, but on the inside of Egypt he completely failed in reaching out, first of all, to his own society, to the Christian minorities, and he did not handle the Muslim Brotherhood ideologically. He should have basically gone after their ideology, and they are haunting him now.
Walid, I want to pick up on some news that's coming into us now. Frank Wisner, who was President Obama's special envoy to Mubarak, deployed earlier this week, has now been recalled. There are concerns now that the Suez Canal may not be stable, and indeed that the Camp David Accords might be struck null in Egypt. How much of the fault of this do you place at the foot of the Obama administration, and what could they have done better?
Well, this administration has done two things that basically are causing the chaos now in Washington, or so. Number one, their experts have told them that the Muslim Brotherhood, our Boy Scouts, are nice people, so why don't we engage with them? So instead of developing a policy that would target civil society, the youth who actually are behind this uprising, we wasted 2 years trying to reach out to the Muslim Brotherhood who were outmaneuvering us, number one. Number two, the Obama administration did not realize that they could have put much more pressure on Mubarak over the past 2 years so that he would engage also with his society. So now we fail on both, and we're coming to analyze who are these hundreds of thousands of Egyptians, you know, voting for or supporting. And we realize that there is a third force, civil society, the one I've mentioned in my book, which is rising, and we have no significant relationship with it.
This strikes me as bizarre. We're about to celebrate Ronald Reagan's 100th birthday here. Imagine if Ronald Reagan, or for that matter, Pope John Paul II, looking at events in Poland 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago now, said, this is a minor concern, this solidarity thing. We shouldn't be worried with this. No, no. They, over a period of years, engaged, found people they could find common cause with, supported them, nurtured them, found channels to them, built up a positive, free, democratic resistance so that it could then move into political leadership. Have we cultivated that sort of approach in Egypt or anywhere in the Middle East?
Raymond, two quick points. Number one, the evidence that the Reagan approach was good is that East Europeans, intellectuals, authors, and public, are telling us now, they're historians, 20 years later, we were listening to Voice of America. We were listening to the speeches of Reagan. That gave us the strength to crumble the Soviet Union. Number two, remember when President Obama and his administration were confronted with a situation in June of 2009 where 1.5 million Iranians, women, students, youth, were marching about to try to collapse the Ayatollah regime. What was our position at the time? Oh, we don't meddle. I mean, you don't meddle, then how are you going to establish a relationship with civil society? Particularly that the Iranian regime is the most problematic regime on the face of earth today. That was a window that we lost. I think they are realizing this. We are very late in the process. You said, which is very important for the public to understand, if the Muslim Brotherhood would basically take the control partially or fully, and we can say how this would happen, what would be the reaction would be immense for us, for the world. First of all, Muslim Brotherhood in government in Egypt, they will cancel the Camp David agreement. The very cornerstone of the peace process in the Middle East will be down.
Now, tell people what that means. They don't many people don't even realize.
1979, there was a peace process, a peace treaty, signed between the late President Sadat, who, by the way, was assassinated by jihadists, and the Israelis. And based on that peace treaty, Israel and Egypt exchanged ambassadors, and there was peace between those two for 30 years. Now, second, the Muslim Brotherhood basically will put pressure on the Suez Canal. They will start to say, oh, we don't want Israeli ships to go in, we don't want American ships to go in, we don't want NATO ships to go in, and that could create tremendous pressure on what? 70% of world oil goes through the Red Sea into the Suez Canal. So that is the kind of threat that the Muslim Brotherhood would have on peace and on world economy.
We just got an email in. If the Muslim Brotherhood takes over Egypt, Pam from Texas writes, would Egypt go to war with Israel and drag us into it? What do you think of the prospects for a large Middle Eastern war? We're not just talking about Egypt and Israel. We're talking about the entire Middle East here.
Well, first, canceling a peace treaty is the first stage of going to war. That's what Nasser has done when he asked the United Nations forces to leave the region between Israel and Egypt, and that led to the '67 war. But I don't think the Muslim Brotherhood are going to go classically to war. What they're going to do is basically adopting the Hezbollah attitude. Oh, they're going to say we have these jihadist groups in the Sinai, they want to support Hamas, and then they will escalate in terrorism instead of just a regular war.
What do you think will be, and I'll ask both of you this, what will be the impact of whatever happens here? And this, I imagine this is going to happen pretty quickly. I mean, you've got President Obama and all of Europe saying this transition must begin now. Why are they so eager to have this happen immediately? Why not a slower transition?
I think it's because they don't know what's happening really inside Egypt. They don't realize, or maybe now they realize that those who launched it are young Egyptian bloggers called in Arabic the Mudawwinoon. They are the ones who put a Facebook, 85,000 hits, first tens of thousands of people took to the streets. The civil society in Egypt that never expressed its opinion before was there. It's only
these are secular kids craving democracy.
Yeah, like everybody else here, and they are, you know, in cahoot with the international community. A third day, you have the political parties coming in. The fourth day, you have the Muslim Brotherhood coming in. The difference is that the Muslim Brotherhood and the radicals have money, have organization, seasoned people, connection to the jihadists, Al Jazeera, long-range artillery, pounding, you know, for them. But the young bloggers and young society in Egypt, they don't have any of this. So definitely now we are, I mean, the administration and officials in Europe, unsure as to what to do. They have no engagement with the society. They were told that the Muslim Brotherhood are Boy Scouts, and therefore they're going to pressure Mubarak to leave.
I want to go to Walid. Is that a possibility? Is that even within the realm here?
Yes. If we have the right engineering in Washington, we'll see.
But Washington isn't saying anything like this. Well, they were calling ambassadors and hunkering down. They're having Super Bowl parties at the White House.
We're trying to help a little bit. Number one, you pressure Mubarak to leave the palace or his position, but not leave in Egypt. You empower Sulaiman to negotiate. You engage with the opposition. I would even suggest bring them to some capital in Europe. We've done that for the Afghanis. We've done that for everybody else. Let's be more proactive. Bring the opposition. The American public, the international community don't know. They can't cite 3 names outside Baradei. And then with the cover of the international community, bring in the UN if you want. You create a national cabinet, union cabinet, and then you isolate the Muslim Brotherhood. You tell them, you want to join the institution, you reform.
There is this Nobel laureate, the deacon mentioned him a moment ago, Mohammed el-Baradei. Who is he, and is he a credible leader in the region? We keep hearing this is just a puppet for the Muslim Brotherhood.
Well, he is a super bureaucrat. We've seen him in action worldwide. When time came to put pressure on Saddam Hussein, he said no. Pressure on Iran. Inspector. Yeah, he is the chief nuclear inspector of the United Nations, was. On Iran, he said, you know, no. And so on the international arena, he is known, but he is known to be saying, no, we should not meddle, etc.
What do you think will happen? This day of departure is February 4th. Another big rally planned in the city. They want Mubarak out. What do you think will happen?
The largest masses are the masses of the opposition, no doubt about it. But Mubarak has his own. He established a balance of power. Then you have an interim government. That interim government must be empowered by the international community, but told basically that you have deadlines. And then we have to identify real trusted leaders from the opposition. Maybe al-Baradei would be one of them.
And we have good relations with the Egyptian army, who are trained here, and that is really, if there's a trump card here for the United States and the West, that may be it, yes?
That's the insurance policy for us and also for the Egyptian people.
Walid Phares, as always, it's a pleasure. Dr. Walid Phares' latest book, The Coming Revolution, Struggle for Freedom in the Middle East. It's really unfolding before our eyes. If you want to know what's going on behind the scenes and in front, go to bookstores everywhere and get it. When we